Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Send It, the official podcast of OKX Insights. I am your host today, Olivia. I'm head of content and communications at OKX, and I'm joined today by several members of the Insights team. We have Hunain and Adam, our senior editors, and we have Maxwell, our senior copy editor. And we're joined today by a very special guest who I'm very excited about, Molly Jane Zuckerman. She professionally is the content czar of CoinMarketCap. And personally, she is my very dear friend. And yeah, welcome, Moll. Do you want to intro yourself a little more?
Wait, can I ask a question? Is Czar really in your title? Like, is that a business card title?
We were told that we can decide whatever outing face terms we would like to have. So my Twitter bio is content czar. I don't have business cards because this is 2021 and like no one does that anymore. But you can check.
As we're about to print
business cards. But maybe we should read those. I agree.
Is it too late to change to like style czar or something? I like it. I like it a lot.
I've copyrighted it. No, I haven't. I like it. I did get a message this morning from a writer that I wasn't planning on continuing with, who said, "Good morning, Miss Czar. Do you have any more work for me?" And it felt kind of not great though. So you have to decide about if you want the responsibility of being a czar or not.
Feel that. Okay, well, content czar Molly. You don't want to intro yourself any further?
I can intro myself. So Molly Jane.
You don't want to tell the story of how we met, which is the
Olivia.
Sorry, go ahead.
Olivia hired me into crypto during the bull run of 2017 when I was unemployed. My master's program had been shut down by the government. I was living in a foreign country, no income, nothing really to do. She brought me on board at Cointelegraph. We spent a glorious year or so there together.
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years before we both left of our own volition.
Yeah, we want to clear the record. We actually quit.
We quit on the same day. Pre-scheduled emails sent out, everything coordinated. We took about 6 months off living in the St. Petersburg, going to get together every day, museums in the afternoons. It was such a nice time, honestly. And now we've both ended up at vaguely competing, but not really similar positions at different companies in the space. Another thing I will intro about myself, because my tenure is about to end, is that I was one of the founding members of the Association of Crypto Journalists and Researchers, co-secretary. We have elections coming up actually this month. So if any of you guys aren't members, and I don't think actually any of you guys are, you should become members. Vote in the elections.
You're not paying members.
You're not paying members yet.
What does it take to be a member?
Paying.
You have to apply.
Okay.
You have to apply.
Okay.
Excuse me. We get to reject and accept. We get to decide if you're a full member, associate member, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, Hunain, I think you're a full member. No? Maybe not.
No, probably not.
Probably not.
Hunain, wait, what's going on, man?
Never mind.
Don't say that here.
Yeah, it's a good shout out.
Hunain in his double life.
We are in the Telegram group, but that is open, I think.
You're in the open Telegram group. You're not in the members Telegram group, which is a little bit more special. Get more perks like free tickets to lots of different conferences. Swag. We have special membership chats and hangouts in real life and online. So it's pretty nice community over there. Cool. I'll be sad to leave as co-secretary, but excited to not have to do the work of co-secretary.
How much does membership cost?
I think it's $75 for a year. but you also can apply for a scholarship. Decrypt is sponsoring some scholarships. Yap Global is sponsoring some scholarships. And then the 3 winners of our annual journalism and research awards also get, I think, 2 or 3 scholarships to give out for memberships. So,
are you not running again for the position, or are you not allowed to run again?
No, I could run. I don't want to run for the board again this year, I decided. I think I'll probably end up doing a working group. I might continue doing the newsletter if I want to. I haven't decided yet.
So we're gonna talk. We're gonna try to talk today about like some of the biggest pieces of news over the last week in crypto. But before we get to that, we'd like to talk a little bit about last week's news. I think it was last week. Molly, you're a quoted expert in the New York Times on this topic, which is the Squid Scam. That's all I know.
Squid Token
Can you
scam.
tell us? Yeah, tell us about it.
This I counted. This is my 5th mention in the New York Times. The first 4 are my dad name dropping me to prove a point in one of his own articles. But this one, 6th time. One was my marriage. So also these have nothing to do with me or like my brains or my smarts or my skills. But this is the first time someone actually wanted to talk to me for me about something I knew. And it happened to be Squid Game token. So there's 2 funny timelines here. The funny and the short timeline is that last week I got a panicked phone call from a South Korean-based New York Times journalist who had got my number and was calling to ask about Squid Game token. He had never covered anything to do with cryptocurrency or really technology before, but he spoke Korean. That was it. That was why the Times had assigned him to it. So I ended up bringing on one of my own editors from Alexandria, Yusra Anwar, and we had about a 2-hour conversation explaining to him what a token was, like what a decentralized exchange was, actually what a crypto exchange was. So it was just a really interesting experiment in teaching the mainstream media how to cover something as complicated as Squid Game token. I think, yeah. So it was not just, he called me for a quote. No, this was like a lesson, which is what our nonprofit does. Actually, we do these things for people, but this time it was just 2-on-1. Anyway, Squid Game token. I know that Max has seen the show. I have not seen the show. So as I'm talking about this, if you have any comments to chime in about that's so ironic or compared to the show's plot, please do. But basically what happened is that on decentralized exchanges like PancakeSwap and Uniswap and other ones, it's very easy to make a token. It does not require incredible technical knowledge, which is why you see all of these tokens coming out every day with names like Poo Token, Baby Poo Token, Mama Poo Token. People just really take something and run with it because they're hoping to make their million. Everyone's hoping to be the guy that put in $50 and it turns into $1 million because that literally happens. And that's what I explained to this journalist, that actually does happen, once or twice a year, once or twice a month, even at this point. So with Squid Token, it was a similar thing, except this one had a little bit more of a nefarious twist to it, because looking back with hindsight, we can see that this project was probably had bad intentions from the beginning, because they put up a funny token. Everyone does that. But then the website they built really, really heavily implied, if not straight out said, we are affiliated with Netflix. Netflix approves this. This is connected to the hit show. I think they said they were affiliated with Microsoft, just those kind of lies that are not the usual meme token funniness. This was a little bit, bit of bad actor. Especially
very ICO vibe.
Very ICO vibe. There was a About Us page that was people that kind of looked like just AI amalgamations of faces, et cetera, et cetera. So normally, and I say normally because rug pulls and exit scams don't happen quite every single day, maybe every other day. A token like this could have gone live. People could have bought it. They could have sold. They could have lost some money. Things would have moved on. But because I think of just like the circumstances at the time, the token and the hit Netflix show, and the fact that I don't know which outlet picked it up first, but some mainstream outlets started covering it as if it were a genuine project like a Solana, or Cardano. Oh, is this going to be the new Bitcoin? Token shot up. But it didn't just shoot up by a little bit. It shot up from 0.007 to $2,800.
What?
Yes.
What?
In a few minutes, and then crashed. The coin's tokenomics are also very important to point out here, and I think that not everyone that buys meme tokens reads the white paper. And obviously white papers can be scammy, they can be written quickly, but this white paper had something very, very unusual in it that if people had read, they might not have bought in the same way. And one was a sort of complicated mechanism that required you to actually play the game to win a second token called marbles in order to sell your original squid. But the problem is that to even opt into their online squid game themselves, because the prices were so high, you would be automatically spending between, I think, $500 and $4,000 just to play. And if you lost in the game, you lost your money. So it said that in the white paper. People, I think, didn't get that. And the second thing is that the white paper had what they called an innovative anti-dumping mechanism, which meant that you were only able to sell your squid if there were 2 times as many buyers as there were sellers. That was written there for everyone to see, and people didn't see that. And so before people realized this was a scam, before the founders or the team literally disappeared, people were trying to swap on PancakeSwap, and they were getting errors, and they didn't know why. They thought it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was in the white paper that no one understood. So all of these things come together. There's CNBC and who was it? BBC writing an article that was just how to play Squid Game token, just full of implications that it was exactly with the Netflix game. CNBC did the same. And then, of course, the token surged to 1,800 and crashed to 0.007 again. And no one was able to sell at any point in that time. There are a few lessons to learn from this, obviously. The first one is read the white paper. The
woof paper.
The woof paper.
If it's a Dogecoin.
They did exit scam, but at the same time, what they were doing was written there. You could have read it and understood it would be hard to sell. The second thing is that for all the mainstream journalists listening to this is not every project has good intentions, but also not every project has bad intentions, because that's what the NYT reporter said, is if it's so easy to do, why doesn't every project do it? And I was like, well, why doesn't everyone just go around murdering people all the time? Like, because not everyone's a bad person.
That's a great answer, Molly.
I'd been talking to him for a long time by that point. And then the second thing that I think even some crypto coverage afterwards got a little bit off is that these meme tokens, it's very rare for people to put in $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $1 million, because the return, they're expecting such a high return that instead you put in $5, $10, $50 and you get that return anyway. So when people say that the money was lost, for the most part, people lost the unrealized gains that never actually existed, as opposed to losing actual money. Obviously, we did talk to a few people through our own content platform, CoinMarketCap Alexandria. One person did put in $28,000. That was their life savings. He seems to be the exception. But yeah, basically, there's a lot of interesting things about this. And I think the fact it got so much mainstream coverage was bad. But I think in the end, people kind of got the message that you can't cover every single new funny token as if it is the next real thing. So,
well, that guy who put in his life savings, like, that's where the irony really comes in. Like, if you've seen the show, or if anyone's seen the show, like, I mean, not to spoil,
it's a spoiler
anything.
alert.
It's not even a spoiler. Right? It's just, I mean, the whole concept is about, heavily indebted people, going into this kind of mysterious situation where they, are promised lots of money if they complete the game, if they follow the rules, if they do all this. But like that's where the irony comes in, is because it's the moral of the story is, when your back's against the wall and you don't have anything else to do, things can get really bad. And, the lengths that some people would go to for that financial, getting back to even is just, it's kind of insane. So that connection between the show and like someone putting in their life savings and then entering the Squid Game like next year to like pay it, like to get the money back, is I think just like a really, I don't know, some sort of irony there.
So should we watch Squid Game, or should we just forget this ever happened, move on?
It's a great show. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
I
great
really
show.
like it. Yeah, Hunain, you've
Are
seen
you
it?
watching
It's a lot of
Hunain?
fun. Yeah, I watched it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a good fun show. Nothing too serious. It's a nice fun show.
It
It's a
seems
great
really
breakout.
heavy.
Oh,
It seems heavy. It seems heavy, but no, the way that it's shot, it's kind of like a comical take on a very grim situation. So, when you're watching it, you don't really feel like you have to commit to this really heavy, intense experience. It's like, it makes fun of itself at times. And the use of colors, like the shocking pink colors and the greens and all, they kind of tone down that seriousness. And I don't think you see... yeah, I don't want to spoil things, but obviously what I'm saying is that it's not as intense an experience as you would imagine such a show would be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, I think it also depends on like what you come in to the show looking for. Like, I don't know, no spoilers, but like episode 6, is one of those episodes where like, if you commit to it and you are ready to like feel all of the feelings, it's going to be devastating. But if, you can kind of keep it detached, then you might come out from that in a different, a different perspective.
Yeah. There are definitely emotional moments in the show if you invest yourself into it.
I'm just happy to see South Korea like expand in the media market after living there for almost 3 years. Like Parasite, and then
Parasite was
with
so
Squid
good.
Game.
Parasite
I
was
still
so
haven't
good,
seen
yeah.
Parasite, actually. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Really
interesting.
good.
But like the timeline
yeah.
goes like Gangnam Style, Parasite, Squid Game, right?
Bringing it back real quick to the token.
Yeah.
I do feel like for me, like the big takeaway I have is I legitimately don't understand how mainstream financial media at this point in 2021 is still so bad at covering crypto. I mean, we've all been around for many years, right? And I don't think that like really like mainstream financial media has significantly progressed in their crypto coverage whatsoever. And it's really weird because like we've all worked with writers of varying degrees in crypto media, of varying degrees of quality and whatnot, but like there should be at this point a pretty like available pool of people that would be able to like write about crypto well in mainstream financial media. And sometimes it happens, of course. It's not like every article in mainstream media is bad, but a lot of times it's just like really bad. Like I still see sometimes in stuff like Bloomberg or Forbes or whatever, like calling like Bitcoin a token, like even just like little things that are just wrong. And it's you would think that these like major mainstream financial media outlets would be sort of the top, like that's what you would expect, but the quality is oftentimes quite a bit lower, than like crypto focused media, in my opinion.
Well, that's really one of the things that the nonprofit that I work for is all about. So we host these series called Off the Record that are truly off the record, and we take a theme, something happening. Like we had one when there was El Salvador. I think we had one when there was the crypto bill that everyone has now since forgot about. But we take experts from the crypto space and we put them online, and then we only let journalists and researchers join. And we've had writers from CNBC, from NYT join and learn about how to cover these really tricky concepts.
You guys like did NFTs also.
We did NFTs.
That one we joined. Yeah.
We have an upcoming one in a few weeks. I forgot what it's on, but I can still shout it. And and now we have Jonah Ossinger, who's a Bloomberg crypto person, who's on our board. She's on our board this term. So I do think that
nice.
Obviously we're not single-handedly changing the narrative in the media, but I do see a shift. And I have this past year working for this nonprofit. You saw that New York Times is hiring a crypto writer now. Well, Nathaniel Faber left, sold his stories to Hollywood. But I think there's a nice shift. It's not like when I first joined and there was an article in Bloomberg that at the end said, We reached out to Bitcoin for comment. They have not responded by press time.
Wait, that's so legendary. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think it was Bloomberg. I'm sorry if it wasn't for, I'm pretty sure it was one of those.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the same thing, and I wanted to ask you, since you work with these journalists as well, do you think that the gap that there is between the crypto journalists and these traditional journalists, or just the communities themselves, do you think that can be overcome by training alone, or do you think that these large reputable media organizations kind of obviously need to hire more crypto talent, or do you think that the real way for them to become actually relevant in the space is to acquire one of the established media houses?
Ooh.
That's interesting. I mean, what we're doing is kind of droplets, a journalist here, a journalist there, learning more about fungibility, etc. I think there needs to be, yes, definitely more hiring, especially because the hiring that's happening now, what was it? Was it the new Bloomberg crypto editor that they hired, had never worked in crypto before? They're making these hires that aren't making, the most absolute sense. I think the problem, after talking to so many of them, is that crypto is still seen as not serious. And I think that Bitcoin's price, even though it's great that it keeps going up for a lot of people, that's not really showing it's a serious thing. It's showing that it's like very speculative. So I don't know. I would be interested. I think maybe down the line in 5 years or so, you could see maybe a smaller outlet doing a lot better, acquiring CoinDesk. That would never happen, but not in the short term.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, because I would imagine that. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Hunain.
No, because I would imagine that a lot of the established journalists in these traditional financial media outlets, even if they don't take it too seriously, or even if they did start taking it seriously, I think that the gap of understanding is a bit too big now. So, for example, these established investors, let's say, of the old times, they still, even if they want to invest in Bitcoin, they do that, obviously, but it's very hard for them to understand crypto as this, digital asset that has value without any kind of tangible backing behind it. So I feel like the same is the case with journalists in the traditional media. I feel like understanding all of the nuances of the space and kind of like to the point where they can look at something like Squid Token and in the first, let's say 1 minute kind of raise some flags. I think that would need a very that's a long way ahead. And I feel like that may probably never be achieved by a lot of these established journalists. Perhaps a new crop of journalists would take that on, I would imagine.
Well, especially because most news outlets, you're not permitted to own any cryptocurrency. And I do think that if you don't own and you've never been on PancakeSwap, then it's very hard to understand. So.
It should change probably. It has to change, I would imagine. How can you cover that if you have no experience with that?
Yeah, I was going to say a similar thing because, I was talking to a writer about it yesterday who's new into the space. And I was talking about how, like, to really, I think, succeed, like, if he wants this to be a career sort of thing, like, you almost need to make it a lifestyle. And that might not be for everyone. But the reality is, it's like, in this space, a lot of the people I've worked with in the past, myself, I think sort of all of us to varying degrees, like, we have like been in it, and we've like lived in it, whether it's somebody riding like DeFi summer, like up all night, like, 2 summers ago, farming whatever like degenerate yield token was there at the time, or you really have to be at the bleeding edge of this stuff. And so you have a pool of people that are there, right? And they know the history of the industry. They know what's happening like today at the minute. And they just have these sort of like, these red flags can pop up like instantly. And I think we are all sort of there. But then on the other side, you have traditional journalists who they're not in it, right? They're not in the game, so to speak. They don't interface with these protocols. They don't know like the airdrop schedule that's coming up. They're just really, the gap is really, really, really wide. And I do think, to Hunain's point, like, you almost have to craft a policy, I think, that allows journalists to participate in this stuff. Otherwise, I don't know how they're going to really get it. Because I think it's hard to, if you're that deep into it, but you're not participating, you're only observing. That's like, you just watch yourself miss out on opportunities. I would imagine you're just watching yourself miss out on opportunities. So, yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot that can be done though to fill the gap, even without like straight up participating in like DeFi summer, for example. Like that's like full in, but I'm just thinking like just like being on crypto Twitter all the time. So if you're hired as like the crypto journalist for mainstream media, like just, yes, you're observing, but if you're just like, if you're, yeah, it's still part of your lifestyle if you're spending all your time kind of like in these conversations, and then you talk to people who are participating. Like if there's a policy against participating, you're talking to people who are participating. You're not just like, I think part of the problem is it must be the speed at which things change, because people like within crypto, it's relatively hard to keep up. People sort of coming from the outside, I feel like it's just like they're trying to publish something that's, you know, going to get them traffic and clickable, but on the other hand they can't like necessarily dig deep. On the other hand, the industry is just like moving forward really quickly, and it's like I don't know, it just like feels like a cycle, because there's such a certain like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of sort of how to transition this. To me, there's a transition here to the Metaverse DAO topic, but there's like certain themes that, you know, are topics that like have been in crypto a long time and that are now being covered by mainstream media. Even NFTs.
Yeah, I was
being
gonna
covered by
mention,
mainstream media as though they just like appeared, and it's like,
yeah.
okay, that's one of the things that actually you could have spent time learning about before. But yeah, what are you gonna say, Max?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just gonna mention that, like, I feel like NFTs are a good example of when, you know, mainstream media, you know, got their hands dirty and actually like did it, you know, and they keep doing it. You know, Time covers, or like a New York Times article, or you know, a Forbes exclusive, or like, you know, they actually go about the process of minting an NFT, you know, selling it, and then, you know, not pocketing the profit, but like, you know, giving it to a charity or something, but like they're involved in it. And I think that's why, I mean, not the entire like only reason why NFTs have blown up, but like they really got more traction, I believe, because it was something that, you know, journalists and the media covering it like could execute and could like, you know, get involved in, and it had like an application for them, versus like, you know, corporate America, especially social networks, they're looking at their, you know, also NFTs, but, you know, the metaverse and digital ownership and just, you know, this kind of frictionless exchange as their kind of ways to get their hands dirty. So I do think that, you know, more and more of like the normies, quote unquote, are getting involved in crypto. I just think that they're not the ones that are sitting on PancakeSwap, like ready to throw in $28,000 for like a Squid Game, because they're also not the same people who are in DeFi summer ready to throw it into,
Wait.
you know,
I don't know. I'm going to respectfully disagree with the PancakeSwap argument, just because in my experience in the spring, right, when we hit the last market top in the spring, a lot of people in my real life were only interested in PancakeSwap. Like they had Trust Wallet,
yeah,
and they literally, like, I used this example before, but I'll use it again. Like my car dealer, when I was buying a car, was like, he found out I worked in crypto because of my paperwork or whatever, and he was like, he told me, like, he showed me his Trust Wallet, and he said, like, I don't want to invest in anything, I just want to get rich quick. And he was like showing me these tokens I'd never heard of and all of that stuff. And he's not the only one. So I do think there was, especially with TikTok influencers and whatnot, I think there was a very large normie retail market that was like participating in it. Just mostly as the gambling aspect. I think to Molly's earlier point, I do think a lot of people sort of put in like $50, you know, like treating it like a casino. Like maybe I'll hit on this one. Of course, there's always going to be people that just like put in their life savings and stuff, but I think generally that was kind of the case. But that's also just in my own like anecdotal experience. I don't know if that's representative of the world.
But I think a lot of the DeFi summer degenerates were making pretty risky gambles.
I would say that was a lot of crypto native people. Yeah, I don't think we're talking about the same kind of people.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I think there is a difference, but still, if mainstream media, journalists can't even understand what like Squid Game tokens are, well, the people that are buying that and losing their money are using a decentralized exchange. So they have to have some level of like understanding just to like have a Web 3.0 wallet and have their life savings ready to invest.
I remember there was a YouTube video like how to make a token on PancakeSwap in 5 minutes or whatever. Like I remember that YouTube video.
Yeah.
And it was really easy.
Yeah. To the point of traditional journalists, and I'm assuming we're talking about financial journalists, and to what Olivia said, that some of that gap can be filled by just them spending more time on Twitter, and I agree with that. And the fact that I think that in my personal view, one of the major stumbling blocks here is the fact that a lot of financial journalists in the traditional media, obviously they've been covering equities and stocks and whatever not, right, bonds and everything. So the thing with those instruments is that you don't have to vet them anymore. And you have these, these regulatory bodies and auditors, when they approve a report, you believe that report, right? Unless you are a very, like a niche investigative financial journalist who kind of, delves into these financial reports and then says that they don't believe them. That's a very rare niche and kind of like a different sector altogether. So most of these traditional financial journalists rely on all these reports. So they don't have to vet those things. They have to only report them. They have to just say that Tesla is up this much and they've earned this much in the quarter. And they don't even have to check those figures because, they rely on the auditor who's done those things. But in the crypto space, there's no such thing. So that vetting of information, I think, is a very big, major stumbling block here. And unless they learn to do that, which obviously comes from some experience, like, what I'm trying to say is that you don't need to own stocks to write about stocks because everybody else does that research work for you. But in crypto, if you don't do that, then nobody does that work for you. So unless we see more of that, and then obviously, the trust factor comes into play, since, the spirit of crypto is that, you don't trust any central authority. So it's a bit of like a challenging thing. I feel like that's a stumbling block for financial journalists.
Yeah, point.
Well, I think that also goes, to the point why an ETF, like an approved financial vehicle, is a kind of that stamp of approval, tacit approval. But yeah, not all assets have that. Obviously, Squid tokens did not get a ETF by Van Eck, so
Yeah,
not yet, not for a while.
So not to like derail this lovely conversation, but I did read a lot about the metaverse before falling asleep, had horrible dreams, and
Can you explain it to me? Because my mind has just been rejecting understanding what Facebook wants to do with it. I get what play to earn games are doing with it, but what Facebook
Okay, I'll try. So the metaverse, right, is referring to not one like platform or company or game or something. It's a concept for like basically a 3D version of the internet. That's one way you could put it. As Zuck calls it, a embodied internet. Honestly, reading this interview with him really freaked me out incredibly. But the point is that like, so right now the way we interact on the internet mostly is like 2D. Like right now we're like these flat screens. Like this isn't really how we interact in real life. And in the metaverse, you basically have this concept of combining some aspects of VR, AR, and regular internet to make it so that you can feel like you're interacting more in the internet. And one of the ways, I guess, that, well, the way it's going to happen, the way it's already happening, is in particular platforms. So like, let's just leave Facebook for a second. Like in the decentralized world, there's like the the most popular probably platform is Decentraland. So that's like, you know, you go to this website and then you can like enter into, you have an avatar and you go into this 3D world and you can build things there, similar to a lot of games that already existed where you can like build your own world. So like, let's say you build like a headquarters or a house or whatever, or a store. Lots of companies are doing this now.
We did. We have some land in the sandbox and we have a storefront.
Or the sandbox, yeah, exactly. So those are like metaverse platforms that are separate. The idea is at some point in the future, or so for those platforms, right, you have like your avatar, which is your identity that you it's your wallet, right? It's your Web 3.0 wallet. Should be. Yeah, you connect your wallet.
Why?
Yes?
Can I just interrupt entirely? Why isn't this is just The Sims?
Yes, but no.
Okay.
I mean,
wait, let me just say my last point and then we can get my last point is that like it's not happening yet, but like in the future, the idea is that you would be able to move from one world to another. It's not supposed to be like one company or one platform like Decentraland or like Meta from Facebook. It's
like when Sims Jacuzzi goes to Sim City.
Yeah, but it's all in Sims.
It's like Mark Zuckerberg is the user and we are all the Sims, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like the way, so I read this interview, I think it was in The Verge with Mark Zuckerberg, but talking about Facebook's meta, but the way he describes it, I mean, some of his metaphors are helpful. Like, for example, to teleport from one place to another in the metaverse would be like opening a link now. So when you open a link now, right, you go to another website. So you could teleport, you have your avatar with your Web 3.0 wallet that's always you, but you can move to different websites, which are like more like 3D worlds. And with VR goggles or not goggles, whatever those are called, with some kind of VR eyewear, yeah, or whatever, eventually, and other types of, you know, technology that make it so that you can actually interact, you can actually like move your gestures, everything you can actually like do in this space. So that was the definition. That was a lot.
You saw my face when you said teleport from one space to another space. I mean, maybe I sound old-fashioned, but shouldn't we just like all get off our phones, you know, like go and walk in real space, you know, social distance a bit, but still be outside? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think there's like two ways of looking at this, right? There's like one very dystopian way where, you know, it's like, what was that movie? WALL-E. Everyone is just, you know, sitting on their little hover chairs and, you know, connected into whatever reality, or like the Matrix, something like that. But on the other hand, I think that this idea of the metaverse and like the Web 3.0 digital identity, it has like organic components to it, like decentralized organic components that you could build outside of like a Facebook virtual reality world. You know, like honestly, I'm not going to go hang out with my friends who look like stupid avatars. Like, I'm just not going to do that. Maybe a VR headset to like, you know, plays like a zombie hunting game. That's cool. But, you know, the way that I think of it more of like for example, Adam, like your Twitter presence, like you have a persona and you have like an identity on Twitter, and you're kind of like you there is maybe something that you could like, you know, have the identity for, that then you could bring to, you know, when you go to the New York Times and read something, or when you know, buy a plane ticket, like
3D reading the New York Times.
But no, see, that's where I feel like the 3D part of it and the virtual reality part is like only the really flashy kind of let's buy, you know, Facebook's Oculus push and everything. But I think that the real metaverse that will develop over time, not through a Facebook centralized like platform, will be just a stronger association with your digital identity, be that through a Web, you know, wallet, or, you know, like your stupid avatar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, you know, the Web 3.0 and the metaverse are different things, right? Because like going to the New York Times with like my Web 3.0 wallet and pseudo anonymous or anonymous identities. That's like different than being in like a virtual space, right? But my concern about it would be, I mean, Facebook has already proven many times historically to not be reliable or trustworthy with your privacy or your information or your data. And I don't see any reason why they would be in like their metaverse, right? So I think one of the big promises of like Web 3.0 generally was always like your right to privacy. So like, yeah, like I have a persona online, but it's it's pseudo anonymous. Like, I mean, here I am. Hi everybody. So like, but I also have like some anonymous accounts and stuff like that too. And it's like the right to interact with the web, like as an anonymous identity, is sort of fundamental. And I highly doubt that can happen in Meta, in Facebook's metaverse. So I think like having a major centralized metaverse platform like that already has proven to be very, very like unreliable with your privacy and data is alarming. I mean, that's where things start to like go more down the dystopian path, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess my thought is like Meta or like whatever platform Facebook ends up launching is kind of their like, because Apple with the new updates has stopped third-party tracking of cookies. Like essentially it's just like a huge cookie jar where instead of going tracking you from Facebook to H&M, you're just gonna go to the H&M shop on Facebook and just have all that in-house. And yeah, maybe that's what some people do, but yeah, I still think that there's a larger idea of a metaverse that is not necessarily attached to like VR goggles and like I don't know. Yeah. Molly, what do you?
I know we have to let you go.
I know. I just texted my team to say I'd be 5 minutes late. So what can we talk about in the next 5 minutes?
Well, we can keep talking about the metaverse. I just want I don't want us to anyway, I agree with your take a lot that like this is a scary direction for the world rather than focusing on like how we can interact more in real life, especially with the pandemic. Like the themes of this are sort of off to me. It's like, how can we replace real interaction, basically make internet interaction more like real interaction?
There's a Black Mirror episode about that. There's literally that Black Mirror episode where there's two friends are playing that virtual reality game and it becomes their whole life, and then it takes a sexual turn because one is a female character and one is a male character, even though they're both men in real life. That's probably a worst case scenario. But like I said before, I think maybe my mindset is a little bit more old-fashioned, but I feel like in my daily life, everything I strive to do is to spend as little time online as possible in every single way, because I think that it is bad for your brain and bad for your attention span and bad for your, intelligence. And so I'm in general opposed to anything, even if it's fun and cool and wow, I could get addicted to like chatting with you at like the virtual coffee shop. It's not for me. The metaverse is not for me. You can tell the metaverse that.
Yeah, we'll
Molly,
let the metaverse though.
Molly, you have AirPods Pro?
These were a gift from CZ.
Chill.
But do you use noise cancellation?
I do, yeah. I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, I was just gonna, I mean, this might be a thread that we can't get into too much, but like, do you see that as like augmented reality?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't use it when I'm walking around the street because I feel like I will get hit by a car and die. I only use it when I'm sitting in a room by myself to make myself feel even more like I'm sitting in a room by myself. Does that support your argument? It kind of is.
I mean, I use it on the metro, like, like just, kind of like shut out the world a little bit.
Aren't you afraid you'll just like not pay attention and just fall into the tracks or something?
Aren't you afraid a babushka will push you because you didn't hear her say something?
I mean, I'm usually standing on the metro with my eyes open and very aware of any
I don't
babushkas
know.
around me.
I was pushed onto the tracks at like a year ago, if you guys remember that. Like I
Wow,
fell
what?
I didn't mind the gap. I like fell through.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
like
Oh my
Jeez.
God, what? I don't remember that.
it was some big holiday and I was going, I forgot where I was going, but I was there and there was just like a push of people and they just pushed me like down the gap. And
And then somebody pulled you up?
a soldier.
Thank God.
Like a soldier pulled me up. I think if I was wearing my
terrifying.
headphones, I would be dead. No, I think it
Jesus.
wouldn't have mattered. Headphones or not. Maybe
Okay.
I could say goodbye and leave you guys to talk about DAOs, I guess, and I'll just have
Sure.
to watch because I want to learn more about DAOs, but it's the thing I know the least about. So maybe it's good that my time constraint is stopping me from looking like a fool.
What's your, maybe we can have a follow-up or you can listen to us talk about it or we'll see. But last
Come back on the
Metaverse,
pod.
what's your hot
Join us
take
again.
on the Facebook ad for Meta?
That was so upsetting. I can't believe I watched it at night. I think that Mark Zuckerberg, I'm watching Succession right now. If you guys are watching,
best.
the rest of the world probably is watching. And I think that the main characters of Succession, specifically Kendall, have a very poor understanding of how the world views them. But that is nothing compared to Mark Zuckerberg's lack of understanding as to how the world views him. He has no concept.
Molly, have you seen the picture of Mark Zuckerberg like windsurfing in Hawaii and he's like completely covered head to toe in sunscreen? I mean, that's like the perfect example. Like I think he like something about like he doesn't get it. Like you don't need
Hey,
that.
that's
much
safe
sunscreen.
sun behavior.
You guys should play the clip here of him talking about grilling and barbecuing. Have you seen that
Sweet
one?
Baby J's or whatever.
Where he's just like, I like to grill. It's really upsetting. I'll send it over.
Okay, please.
But with that, I really send me off how you all are. My team is waiting.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time, Molly. And it was a pleasure to speak to you.
It's a pleasure to see you guys all here
thanks,
in our
Molly.
little metaverse on Restream Studio.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good meeting.
All right.
Bye,
Take
Molly.
care. Bye.
You know, I think
I
the
didn't
only way
scratch
to
my
make
Metaverse itch. What?
No, I'm ready to go back to the metaverse, but I was trying to think of a way to like make an argument in like rhyme and rhythm, so that it would be a verse but super meta.
Yeah. Nice. Nice one.
Do not
Working on
get
that
it.
joke. I was watching the replay.
I do think it's interesting, Molly's point about the Black Mirror episode, that one specifically, because I do think that, like, I agree totally that I don't like the idea of, like, living in the metaverse. Like, I don't want to meet my friends at a virtual bar. I want to go to the bar. Like, I don't want to necessarily go to a virtual concert unless, I mean, that could be cool, like, if I can't get to the concert otherwise. But I'd rather go see it in real life. That's part of the experience. But in terms of video games, I do think that is one of the main, like, for me at least, I would say like useful applications of it because, for example, my brother lives on the other side of the world, but we play video games together, like when we can. And that's already time being spent in front of a screen, whatever. Anyways, I'm not outside. So like that would be cool if there was like, you know, the metaverse develops to a point where we can like be playing a game together, but like in a virtual 3D space, whether it's like using an example of like Forza Horizon 5, it's like an open world car game, you know, and it's like if you could actually be like VR driving together in this space, I mean that would be pretty incredible. I mean it's already cool now, like on a 2D screen or whatever, but like that's where I see like the metaverse having sort of useful applications in terms of like the life hangout stuff. Like I don't know, I don't like that. That's where it starts to get like darker to me, when you're replacing things that you would normally be doing in the real world with like the virtual world. I think it gets dark. But if you're already doing something virtually anyways, like on the internet, like browsing the web, playing online games, whatever, I think it can be useful and cool.
Adam, question. Oh, sorry, Hunain, you can go ahead.
No, you ask the question, then I'll comment.
Yeah, it's just okay. That replacement of the, you know, normal real world stuff with just something virtual, would you, with your brother, overseas, would you like join a virtual room where you guys could like sit on the couch together virtually and like play a video game virtually? Like, I'm just imagining
that's how it would be.
yeah, you're just like sitting on a couch in your device.
I would try it,
but it's not immersive, right?
But no, yeah, I'm talking about like being immersed into the game you're playing specifically, not being like I'm replacing the living room with sitting on the couch. Yeah, I mean like, because for example, with a racing game, there's already VR racing games where you are in the car in VR and it feels like you're driving a car really fast. It's an immersive experience. It's virtual reality. If the Metaverse gets to the level where you can play like a fully fleshed out game like Forza Horizon 5, and you can play that like, because you already can play that with like a team of people, and you can all be driving around doing whatever. But if you could all be doing that in VR, in the same game, like that's like a metaverse, right? Or that's one game that sort of exists in the metaverse, and that I think would be cool because all it's actually doing is making the game like more immersive, making the game better. But no, I wouldn't want to just like sit in a VR space on a couch next to my brother's avatar and playing like that's just like stupid.
Right.
I mean, I would try it once just to see what it's like, but I think it would be stupid.
But then, like, what's the difference between that and just like, online multiplayer games anyway? Like, I feel like there's already like a multiverse, if you play, Call of Duty online, or you're playing World of Warcraft, or, chess.com. My friends really like to play chess, and that's, I guess the idea of like the meta part of it doesn't really make sense unless there's the connection between all of those different things, right?
I mean, some people might like it. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. Like if I'm playing Call of Duty with like 40 other people, right? It's fine for me if we're all just in the same voice chat in our own spaces. I don't need to be in like a VR space with a bunch of weird avatars and stuff. I'm cool in my own space just talking to people through a mic or whatever. Like,
you need to think bigger, Adam. Okay? You need to think about the future.
But
would you go to a virtual space to play a game of chess versus like just doing it on your device?
I might. I mean, certainly it's a case by case basis. Like if you're playing a game that is like chess or a tabletop game, for example, that could be cool, because then you're all in a space and the tabletop game is on a table, right? And then all of your avatars are around it, but you're all like looking at the same 3D like tabletop game. I think that would could be cool, but it's a case by case basis. I don't want to sit on a virtual couch with a virtual controller in my hands. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, that's what I kind of want to talk about. And I'll give the example of Second Life, and I've given this example before. But I was one of the early players, and I've spent I would say 4 or 5 years playing that game on and off. So I can kind of comment on some of the things that are different when you compare them to real life. So number one is I've never hung out with my real friends in Second Life. I've never even invited them because I've never felt the need to do that. But I have made some really good friends on Second Life, people I would have never have met. So for example, on Second Life, what you do is, and it kind of reminded me because when Olivia was talking about meta, Olivia talked about there being links and teleport. And that's something that was on Second Life even then. So whenever somebody invites you to their own plot of land, they send you an invitation, and that invitation is actually a link. When you click on that link, you get the option to teleport. You click on the teleport button and you're just teleported there, and the screen just loads into that person's house or that person's plot or whatever. So it's very similar to that, and it's kind of like, I feel like it's like borrowed from that concept. But some of the fun things over there were that mostly everybody was anonymous, number one, which is one reason why I haven't been able to be in touch with those people since I left the game, because I can't find them. They were the personalities that like Maxwell was pointing out earlier about Adam having that personality on Twitter. All of those people were personalities, and you kind of get to know their personalities. They don't know me, and I don't know them in the real world, but their personalities are kind of what you enjoy, just like you enjoy, your friends in real life. Somebody's funny, somebody's kind of like, whatever, moody or whatever. So the people had those same things going on. And there was not a lot of, the culture wasn't such that you'd ask people about their real name and real gender and whatever not. You just go with whatever the avatar they have. And for me personally, I learned a lot about, different cultures, different people, different, like just like even languages. And some of the best parts of my experience playing Second Life, the metaverse, was that you could go to, let's say, a town recreated like it would be in Brazil, for example, and then people would be hanging out there, and you could walk through that town. And the best thing was that all the avatars standing there could talk at once simultaneously, and you would hear them in spatial audio. So as my avatar walks, I could tell that there's a person on the left and they're talking amongst each other, let's say two people, and their voice would fade as you walked farther, and their voice would grow louder as you walk nearer to them. So it was like you could listen into conversations, and I could literally turn, walk to them, and be like, hey, I heard you say that, so this is I'm here as well, or this is my experience, or whatever not. And that's how people communicated, and that was for me was a really different experience, and I really enjoyed that. And one of the mainstays of Second Life was that there would be town centers, and everybody would just hang out there, and people would be doing their own things, talking. And by the way, that experience about the chess game, that happened over there. So they would have those chess sets, tables, and everybody would be standing around them, and they could be doing their own things and just turn their avatar for a minute, just look at the game, talk about it, comment about it, and you as the player could listen to everybody at once, just like you would in the real world. So that's not something you find in the gaming rooms. So when you join a gaming chat room, you have all those people obviously there, but there's no one center of attention. And like Adam said, nobody shares the same 3D view. But in this case, everybody shared the same 3D view, and they had their own perspective. So if somebody was standing on the left, they could see from that perspective. Somebody was standing on the right, they could see from that perspective. So people routinely dropped in, dropped off, and it was like a community of its own. Like I remember people, you'd be standing in the town center, somebody would drop in and be like, hey guys, and you would recognize the person from their voice, and you'd be like, the avatar such and such is here, and you'd be like, hey, what's happening? And you'd play a game with them, or you could go to like a go-kart racing thing, sit into a virtual car and just race around and do crazy things like, run into trees or run into lakes and swim, or, fly in the skies or whatever not. And all the while you could all be talking together. So like if 4 of us were there, we could all be talking to each other, and it would seem like a real conversation because of the spatial audio, and we could do a lot of things. So that is something. Yeah. and that is something that you can't really do in the regular gaming environments. And I'm not even talking about like the shopping experiences, because there were stores there and very talented people who made a lot of money. I know them from the game, obviously, because everybody was anonymous, but they made a lot of money doing cultural things. So for example, there were Indian designers who would design Indian costumes, and like somebody else from some other part of the world designing their kind of costumes, and people would spend a lot of money buying those things, much more money than you would expect back in the day. Like Bitcoin, people would spend. No, so Bitcoin came later, where you could integrate with that. But initially what they had, I'm not actually sure about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was supported via third parties service. So a third party would exchange your Bitcoin for their virtual currency. So they had a virtual currency called Linden dollars. So you would have those, and people would spend thousands of dollars every month. But obviously there's another part to it where, you stop enjoying these things and you go to the darker side of it, where virtual personalities kind of, fall into this trap where they don't want to leave this world, and they don't want to live the real life. And there were times when, for example, marriages in the real world were broken up because the avatars in the Second Life were kind of together, and they wanted to get married. And I've seen people in the game get married have virtual children. So that's kind of, taking it a bit too far. So there's obviously a middle line that you have to kind of see. And it also depends on, like Max also said about something earlier, that it depends on what you come in with and what you expect out of that. If you come in, let's say, trying to really escape the world and just find somebody else, I guess you'll do that. If you're coming in to meet new people, I think that's unprecedented. I mean, that's a unique experience. Totally.
Yeah. So just that point though, like, full circle back to like South Korea. I know that when I was there in like 2012, like 2013, that was pretty much after these really high profile cases of like their PC bungs is what they're called, like PC rooms. And there were a lot of cases with World of Warcraft, League of Legends, 18 hours, 20 hours, like 36
StarCraft,
hours straight.
Right?
StarCraft as well. It was huge. And, there were deaths, like high school students, skipping class, or, drop out and just, go to the PC room and play until they died. And so there was, because of those like cases. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that it was like
of starvation.
Yeah, of just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sleep deprivation
dehydrate, yeah.
and dehydration and just an unhealthy lifestyle for sure.
And a lot of that,
but
not to interrupt you, Max, too, a lot of that was tied into the competitive, like e-gaming
Yeah.
scene, and a lot of people wanting to like
Yeah.
make it as a professional esports player and stuff.
Yeah, that was big in Korea, and it was just like, I can't say that it was like a huge, I don't know how many people have died in PC rooms. Probably not as many that die in a car, but there were high-profile cases that spurred on the government to create regulations, and it is something that probably should be like regulated, because if it's like we were discussing on a previous call about Facebook's ambition for a digital currency and how that wraps into like their metaverse, and just kind of like I've thought for a few years now about the corporate control over our like monetary supply, and then now with metaverse, even just our like social interactions and virtual lives. So I think something might happen where governments will come in and just regulate and tamper it down a little bit.
I mean, they'll try. That's the thing, like any positive spin on this development, like Meta, specifically the metaverse planned by Facebook, like Facebook, like they can say, we're not going to dominate the space. We need lots of people to make platforms. This is not about Facebook. This is not just us. Da, da, da. But like resources, money, like they're gonna dominate, or some company like them will. And any positive spin on it to me is just like so easily kind of I don't know, just overshadowed by the potential bad that's gonna happen. Like I feel like our overall theme, like as this group, is that we're like all fairly anti this world. It seems like
Anti this world or anti the
anti-metaverse, like
Okay.
not actually anti-metaverse. I don't want to like label anyone like that, but I just mean like the vibe in this conversation is that we're all a little bit worried about the development of the metaverse. We're all very pro this current world, but I think like for me when I was reading this interview, it's just like the warning signs, or like the red flags, were just like popping up constantly. Like, for example, what about sexual harassment, or like what about other things that we consider crimes and like social crimes? What is like what about police? Are there going to be police in the metaverse? I mean, it's just like
Facebook community. What are they? Content.
Yeah.
Moderators.
That's a really good question, though.
I mean, but the thing
We've
is,
had
like,
the internet police for a while. Yeah.
But like they're thinking about that, right? Like Facebook is thinking about these things, and that was part of the interview, because like what you're pointing out, they already have police. They have content moderators who are censoring content, or working to censor content across their platforms, not just Facebook, right? But like all their platforms, specifically around misinformation, right? So like having a source of truth that is verified by whoever. And it's like, given that we've seen this explosion of policing the internet in the past 5 years, but especially since the 2016 election, why is anyone thinking that that's gonna like be possible in a more immersive version of the internet? Like, if anything, it's impossible now. Like, and maybe shouldn't be possible. So the whole question of the ethics of like censorship in the internet, and if you want to have the metaverse be like the internet in the sense that nobody owns it, even though like Amazon's servers are like the dominant. Amazon is, let me say that again. most people
they
use
house the
most,
internet, yeah.
even though most people use servers from Amazon, but like no one owns the internet technically, and no one will own the metaverse. But like, that's just going to make it even harder to sort of deal with the I don't know, like the dark side of what's going to happen.
I envision that it's like, I envision it with two sort of veins, right? So like with like online games, again, they already have like terms of service. People get banned. People get temporary bans, permanent bans, all that stuff for violating the terms of service. That also happens on social media platforms all the time. Like crypto Twitter accounts get banned all the time. I imagine the same general kind of rules would apply. Like I imagine Facebook's like terms of service and whatnot would sort of apply to their metaverse. Also, I would assume that like legally, like cybercrime and stuff like that would also, those rules would apply, like at least when it comes to things like harassment, fraud, like things like that widely. But I agree that you would assume it would be more difficult to police those things than on the traditional internet. That for sure.
Well, I think there's, maybe an interesting, not to get too philosophical, but like maybe an interesting take on this, or like perspective, is to think about terms and conditions versus like a bill of rights. Like when let's take the US for example, the public square, freedom of speech, Donald Trump, or anyone, KKK, not conflating the two, but like anyone can go out and like say what they want in the public space. And that's just something that is held as a right. It's not like I feel like probably the rest of the social media networks are probably like really pissed off at Mark Zuckerberg for like pushing this, because it's already been a little bit tense, like with Twitter, deplatforming people, and this kind of like, but it is, a private corporation, their own thing, and you get to be there. Those are the terms and the conditions to let you stay, versus, in the real world, or, at least, just take America, for example, like we have these unalienable rights that you don't have to adhere to a set of standards. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, is like a metaverse bill of rights like in the cards, or is it always just going to be, like you have to follow the terms and conditions, otherwise we have our police, fighting you? Is there a justice system if you think you've been
that's the thing,
harmed?
like the metaverse bill of rights would have to apply to all platforms, right? It would have to be meta, and that's not impossible to imagine. Just like, I'm not the first person to make up this metaphor again with the internet. Like there are standards and protocols that make the internet work because everybody uses them, like HTML. So it's just like, that's not impossible to imagine. But the ethical side, I think, is what gets really problematic, because it's not like, oh, there's going to be all these bad people and now we need like metaverse police or whatever. It's just like the question that has to be asked. That question has to be brought up from the very beginning. And what scares me is, first of all, like, especially now, I think more and more people, the sentiment is more that we wouldn't want to add another place in which we can be policed and censored. So, and that will be the case. Like, like it will be. So for Facebook, they will have to have rules. They will ban people. Like they're not gonna.
They would have to.
Yeah, they're gonna do that. There's not gonna be like, some
Inalienable.
What's the word?
Inalienable.
Inalienable. There won't be inalienable rights to participate in their metaverse. I'm sure. That's not like just not
there
possible.
Could be some. I mean, they could come up with some.
No, they will definitely ban people. Like
But that doesn't. I mean,
Facebook's meta is not going to be the bastion of freedom in the metaverse. It's like it's going to be far from that. But
of course, but I'm saying they could spin it as a way of like, okay, yeah, you have the inalienable right to choose your clothing, You know, like it's
okay.
Sure. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I just feel like I guess my point here is not that I don't personally want to like hate on the concept of the metaverse in general. I think it has some really good use cases for enhancing virtual experiences, just like what you said, Adam. Just like I support what you said. Like, you have a virtual experience that you're already doing, like playing a game, and that can be enhanced with metaverse-like technologies, including VR. But I think what I'm really freaked out about is Facebook, because it's kind of like what Molly said. Like, the way Mark Zuckerberg talks about it is just like completely out of touch with how things in the world actually work, and it's kind of just like mind-blowing. Like, yes, he mentions some of these problems. He mentions the dark side a little bit. I think he even mentions like gender imbalance in VR in general, and that there's more men in the industry in VR right now. And like, he mentions like, but he also mentions the need for sort of like rules and policing. So it's like, let's just assume, right, just because of the way monopolies work, that if Facebook goes forward building their metaverse platform, that it's going to be a dominant, if not the dominant platform. So do we really want Mark Zuckerberg to be the person coming up with the idea of our virtual world? Like, because it's like, he thinks that like he speaks in that sort of tech, like, do you guys know what I mean? That like tech lingo, the Silicon Valley lingo of like making the world a better place. And like, if we just like get rid of the bad guys and, you know, we'll just ban the bad guys and then we'll all be able to hang out with our friends. It's like, do you hang out with your friends?
Does
ever?
he have friends?
Like, whenever he spoke in front of like the house and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, it's so like jarring.
Yeah, and then not to mention like the government involvement for Facebook, how they are just, that's another sort of angle to look at this. This is like potentially a way for them, because they're under attack essentially as a company, like in the US. And so another angle of looking at Meta is like their sort of plan to get away from or get out from under.
Yeah.
And this is the guy,
I think that's what's...
meanwhile, sorry, Max, this is the guy, meanwhile, building the metaverse and talking about all this stuff, who has bought and literally keeps buying like all of like the best land on Earth in Hawaii, basically, like paradise on Earth, you know, type stuff. He owns like a lot of land in Hawaii, where he spends a lot of his time in the real world enjoying, you know, some of the best natural like splendor the real world has to offer. And he's the one trying to, you know, dominate the metaverse. So I don't know.
So that you can also surf in Hawaii, but you can do it virtually while I'm like actually surfing in Hawaii.
You can also make yourself look like a specter covered in sunscreen.
Okay, Adam won't let the sunscreen go.
Have you seen the picture? It's hilarious.
I have.
Okay,
it is like, creepy level Halloween Slender Man.
And I think he said like he did it because he didn't want people to recognize him or something. But it's like, dude, you still look like Mark Zuckerberg. You're just covered head to toe in sunscreen, but you still look like you.
Yeah. That was
okay. Wearing sunscreen is good, but this
no. This is different. This is whiteface, which is just like a different level.
He might not actually be head to toe, because I think he's wearing like a a water suit and stuff. But his whole face is
one where he's like looking behind. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. He really has a
blurry
mask.
Photo. Yeah, almost like Bigfoot. But okay, but I think that's who can save us from this monster, this evil, totally pale, never tanned villain.
Crypto.
But alternatively, if you take a step back and just kind of, I don't know, the way that I have been thinking about this is like there has been, up until maybe the 70s and 80s, like really, this century has been dominated by like governments, like strong nations, strong governments, like that has been the driving force. Since the growth of the corporate America, essentially. It's just gone so fast and become so powerful that really, I mean, like, the trend is going towards the metaverse, and Facebook knows that, and they're positioning themselves to be there. Like, do you think the Democrats and the Republicans in the House and the Senate are going to come to a bipartisan deal on funding a US metaverse, like, you know, free for the people? Of course not, right? So, you know, either it's going to be a centralized corporate interest platform that a lot of people will, you know, just like people use Facebook and, you know, I guess buy things from ads. I don't even know how ads are like the main revenue, because I would never buy anything from a ad. But, you know, alternatively, the crypto decentralized, you know, maybe Decentraland, although, you know, arguments of whether that's actually decentralized now that all the land has been bought, or the sandbox, or maybe just, you know, the idea of governance in general, like we were talking about policing, and DAOs, which maybe, have you read Rick's new piece on DAOs? I didn't get to it, to be honest. So maybe, no.
I just read we didn't have his piece, we just had the notes. So,
but I mean, that the DAO structure could be like the only thing that, you know, could potentially save some humanity in a metaverse future.
I mean, it's like, I feel like there's a relationship, yeah, for sure, with so the DAO structure and the metaverse concept there should be a relationship in the sense that, like, that, yeah, like you're saying, that could be one decentralized way of governing. I think, like, I don't know, maybe it's just really pessimistic of us to think about this new way of interacting and to just be like, well, like, it's going to be crazy and anarchy and they'll need to govern it or something. Like, maybe we're not thinking along the right lines, because it's probably how people originally thought about, like, interacting in the internet in general. So it's going to be crazy. And it has been crazy. And Hunain's going to drop knowledge. It has been crazy. And people have been shut out from it. Like, as in centralized, the pattern is that centralized platforms can kind of control or dictate, like, what is allowed to be said. Like, there are already rules. So it's not like we're not imagining some dystopia in that sense. But I don't know. I just think, like, is it going to be crypto that comes through to sort of, like, set up decentralized governance and make things more, like, access maybe more egalitarian, not like just not that you could be banned from a platform because of something that you say? Like, is that going to be something a DAO can do, or is it just going to have to be good old government going in?
Yeah, no, I was gonna comment on this earlier as well. I feel like there's always going to be the need for some kind of policing because of the internet. I mean, I feel like in the real world, we have some moral constraints as well, and there's some behaviors that are kind of not encouraged because of, you know, let's say social pressures and everything. But on the internet, we see regularly that people kind of shun those inhibitions and they act in really crazy ways because of a lot of factors. I mean, not just the fact that they're anonymized, but also the fact that, for example, you know, you're very unlikely to be out, let's say at 3 o'clock in the night or 3 a.m. in the morning and doing crazy things, but you can do those on the internet, right? So you can be unleashed on the internet at any hour of the day. And that's what happens in most games as well, and Adam can testify. People are really toxic, and there's a lot of toxicity. They're saying things you wouldn't want your children to be exposed to, really, though, honestly. And there's like all sorts of objectionable things, objectionable behaviors that are out on full display, and you can't police them. It's nearly impossible to police them. I mean, you can mute people, you can ban them, but there's a very big degree of self-responsibility when it comes to these things. So, I mean, obviously, I think the same thing extends to Facebook's Meta. You can't police these things in real time. I mean, with let's say, you know, a text post, it's posted it's obviously not taken down in the first second, and somebody may vet it or may get to it maybe in an hour or 2 hours, depending on how many people report it, and then they can take it down. But when you're in the metaverse and everybody's talking at the same time, you can't censor, like speech in real time, right? So that's not going to happen.
It's going to be
So
real fun.
how do you make that safe? Yeah.
Although, I mean, I feel like, for all of the ambitions that Zuck has, I feel like whatever eventual metaverse, whatever it becomes, I feel like it will be fractured. And I feel like it will be algorithmic, almost to a way that like TikTok algorithms are like really, really good that, when you just swipe and start, finding what you like, it just keeps showing you more of what you like. And so I feel like communities are going to form, whether on through the influence of this got cat's tail.
Sorry.
But like communities will form either via the influence of like an AI kind of like pushing people in one way or another, like, okay, you guys like this kind of comedy, or you're into this social movement, or you're conservative, you're liberal, whatever. It could either be all watched over by machines of loving grace, or it could just be people who get kicked out of the Facebook metaverse and then go make their own. I don't know, what did everyone go make after they went to like one of those alternative? What was it?
Elo was one where all the creative people made it, and
stuff like that.
Gab, yeah.
Which are considered like alt-right.
Yeah, which were a fractured community, but it was like social networks became more fractured. So like, look at Facebook now. Like that
probably the more interesting question is how decentralized platforms are going to deal with this kind of social policing or whatever.
Yeah,
because we know how Facebook is going to deal with it. It doesn't. There can't be a question about that.
Yeah, and I was thinking that I really think that perhaps the dystopian future that we were talking about would be when, let's say, Facebook's Meta kind of becomes the dominant thing. Obviously, there will be other players as well. Like, for example, we had Snapchat and all of these things kind of innovating on the social media aspect. So we'll see those as well. But I feel like eventually all social media, I think, will enforce linking your accounts to real identities, verifiable identities. I think that's the way they want to go. They're just not doing it right now. That would obviously solve a lot of real problems as well, but that would also mean that a lot of those, the things that we're talking about, accountability, responsibility, those things will be enforced much more strictly.
Yeah.
And then if you're banned from a platform, you can't really come back. And that's kind of like the part where you don't want to be, especially if Metaverse becomes like this dominant thing and you're linked to your real identity and then they ban you and you can't come back. You can't just make another account. That would be something that would keep people in sorts of checks, which
right.
you may
so
not
if
want.
It's like, if it has real world sort of policing implications.
Yeah, for sure. You could get a knock on your door just because your avatar said something.
Something that gives me a bit of hope about like that Facebook won't just sort of monopolize the entire thing, though I think they will be kind of the first mover and potentially the most successful, but is that they're not the only ones that want to do this. I mean, and not the only ones with a lot of money that want to do this either. Like Sony is a good example, Microsoft. I mean, they all want metaverse technology for their game platforms. And Steam is another big one. Steam, Valve has loads of money, and they definitely are going to, though they'll probably outsource it, but they're going to want to have a piece of this pie too. And I highly doubt, knowing the nature of these businesses, that they're going to be like connected, I think they will be like separate metaverse platforms. And so I think the overall centralized sort of metaverse audience will kind of be fragmented. Though I think they will probably overlap. Like I'm sure people will use Facebook's metaverse and use Steam's metaverse or whatever.
But your Nike NFTs will be, interlopable.
Yeah, but maybe that'll help. I just think maybe that'll help like dilute the dystopian potential of it when, like, through healthy competition, right? Through healthy capitalist competition, you can have more options of where you're gonna live in your virtual space.
So the idea is that you, with any sort of metaverse, like developed metaverse future, the idea is that you have your not only your avatar that's or avatars that can move through different worlds, or move across different platforms, but also, yeah, your stuff, like you're saying, Maxwell. Like you can have your NFTs, you can have your all your digital things that you own, your assets. It's like, that sounds cool. But then, yeah, the question of like so if that does need to be connected to a real identity, then you're sort of like losing the whole anonymous side of having your Web 3.0 wallet avatar, which can be like anonymous or as anonymous as you choose it to make it. And then we get into the question of, yeah, like anonymity versus what?
Well, I don't think any of these
Accountability.
centralized platforms are going to have
Accountability.
are going to have like a universal Web 3.0 wallet like MetaMask or something, like, or using Ethereum. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think like for Sony, you're going to use your PSN ID, and that's not going to be interchangeable with Microsoft's gamer tag. Like they're not going to be, because they're obviously major competitors. I'm sure that they will all link, like you can now. You can link your IDs to your social media, so I'm sure you will still be able to do that. But I highly doubt, because of the nature of the competition of the business and everything, I highly doubt there will be one sort of like decentralized identity that's KYC that just goes through like all of these different like major corporations metaverses. I don't think, like,
At least
not
not
in the way
anytime
that
soon.
Yeah, and so when you compare that to the decentralized metaverse, obviously you would have your address or your multiple wallets or one wallet or whatever, and it can be anonymous and all that stuff. But I don't think, and I don't want to be pessimistic, but I don't think that's going to succeed in the face of major corporations, centralized metaverses like Facebook, the big gaming platforms, and all this. I just don't know how like a decentralized startup could really compete with Microsoft or really compete
Yeah,
with Sony.
I hear that, but I also am just thinking like, so we know that these platforms already exist, like Second Life, that fully developed, as Hunain is explaining in detail. Like Steam as a platform is like a world that you have your account and you can go and play different games, right? So arguably, like that's not a metaverse then. It's not a metaverse if it does, like what makes it a metaverse if you can't move across platforms with your avatar? Like now
Well,
I'm getting
I think it's just branding more than anything. I don't think Facebook's metaverse is really going to be what it's going to be Facebook's metaverse. I don't think there's going to be one. I don't think there's going to be just one all-encompassing metaverse that everyone just buys into. I can't.
We should make the Omniverse. Let's make the Omniverse.
He wants Facebook to be one of many. Okay, he doesn't want to dominate.
but I think that's like, okay, take Twitter for example. Like I almost consider that just like social media in general, if you're really into it, which I'm not really into any social platform like so much that I feel like my identity is there. But if you, for example, like you bought a CryptoPunk and Twitter now is going to verify, like connect your wallet and say, yeah, that's really his punk, like that, like we've talked about before and we've written about, that gives you status, right? So your digital identity is, has got some swag. And I think that is just as much of a step into the metaverse than Oculus Rift. Like I think Oculus Rift is just like the flashy, VR, yeah, which is fun. It's cool. It could be a, world-changing technology, but I don't find that as dystopian because like Molly was saying, like could just, always just not use it. Like of all of the different dystopias that, have been, conceptualized in media and Hollywood and novelists, like Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse is really the least concerning for me because like, yeah, You just
It
don't
could be the first brick,
have to.
though. It could be the first step on that path, you know. But
You're talking about you can
and it's-
opt out of it, right?
But yeah,
So
but in a way, like it still spills over. Like it even does now, though. Like my friends, I don't watch people's Instagram stories. Sorry, and I rarely post a story myself, but sometimes I do. But like I realized that a lot of my friends watch all of each other's stories like every day,
mhm.
and you know when I asked them, like there a couple months ago, like some friends were hanging out, and I just asked like what they did on the weekend, and another one answered like, "Oh, didn't you see his story? He did this," and it almost like bleeds into the real world because, like I don't know, people might not just express or like retell the things that they did because they have an expectation that if you wanted to keep up with my life, you just follow my stories. So there is a bleed effect out into the real world, but
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
I do think though too, like again, the difference between the Web 3.0 and the metaverse, I do think they're like different things. So like verifying your NFT ownership on Twitter, I think is like a Web 3.0 thing. Like I don't see
Mhm.
that necessarily as it's like that could be a part of the metaverse, but at least for me, and people might disagree, and anyone listening at home can conceptualize their ideas in the comments and stuff too. But like for me, the metaverse is almost like almost has to be a virtual reality experience, or at least an augmented reality experience. Like I don't think just interfacing with the web in that way, that's just a Web 3.0 experience, which is like sort of a building block to a wider metaverse, I would say. But for me, a metaverse, it like has to be like virtual reality or augmented reality. I don't
Or
know if you
just
guys
like
agree with
by
that or not.
Well, for me, it has to be multi-platform. So it has to be, by definition, you can take your punk into one platform and then take it into another platform. So that I don't really know how that's going to work without Web 3.0, but like, yeah, that seems to be a big part of it.
yeah, I mean, I think thinking about it now, I actually feel like I understand the genius of Facebook changing its name, like its corporate name, to Meta, just because it is like pretty undefined still. Like there's a a broad definition maybe of just like online life. Your online life
Yeah.
is this metaverse, or maybe it's like on a hardware like interaction with computer like technology. Maybe augmented reality means that we don't have to be like holding our phones, that we'll have it more like, I don't know, brain chips or something. But like that could be one view of it also. And then another view, yeah, it could be a connected between platforms, this overall like atmosphere of the internet. So I
Different
think that it's
worlds,
yeah,
which
and I
are
think
like
that
different sites.
and I just think that's why it's great that it's very it makes sense why Facebook just chose that name without really. Actually, did you hear they didn't even buy the some other company had a copyright or like had the trademark on Meta, and they were asking Facebook, like, they wouldn't give it to them. I think they wanted $20 million or something. So like they didn't even have it secured before they rolled it out. But yeah, I think it's a really smart move on Facebook to
Sure,
establish
strategically, yeah.
themselves on a vague concept and then let everyone on their podcast decide what it is.
Uh,
Let me ask you guys the $1 million question then. So let's envision a future, right, where Facebook and everybody's, platforms, they all get along. They all have an interconnected metaverse in which you and your stuff and the clothes you buy that you get NFTs for and all this stuff, it all goes on everybody's platforms and everybody's video games and everybody's social media and all that stuff in one truly connected metaverse that incorporates centralized platforms as well as decentralized platforms and whatnot. But then, so what would the blockchain of all of that be? Because they're all going to have to agree on one blockchain, right? Or I guess you can envision a cross-chain future too, but still, like, if let's assume is one blockchain, what is it going to be?
A centralized one, not a decentralized one. A centralized blockchain, like yeah.
Flow.
Obviously, OEC. I think it's going to be cross-chain. I think that has to work. Like that has to be. I feel like those two movements, like in crypto, the sort of interoperability of blockchains, and then within crypto and out of crypto, this like interoperability of metaverse worlds, they have to develop together.
Yeah, but that runs into huge like compliance regulatory issues. Like, I mean, just think, I mean, the NBA was able to license the Top Shots and the Flow blockchain because it is centralized, and there's KYC procedures, AML. There's the process to like put your money in and take your money out, and you can't move your NFTs. I think they recently made it so you could move it outside of your like NBA Top Shot wallet, but still only on the Flow blockchain. So I really think unless there's a major change in like the regulatory stance and just the way that the US and countries around the world allow the like exchange of capital, and I really think that it's hard to imagine these already scrutinized companies saying, oh yeah, let's mint everything on a cross-chain,
and yeah,
just,
you go to H&M,
I can't see
right?
it working.
You go to H&M and buy some clothes that come with an NFT for the metaverse, but it's like this one's only on Solana, so you can't have it on anything that's uses Ethereum, or you have to bridge. You're on some platform, but it's like you need to bridge over to like Phantom or something, bridge all your NFTs.
They signed a deal.
Imagine carrying, like luggage full of like clothing NFTs like across a sketchy bridge, over a canyon.
Just imagine like going to like Zara, or like you go to H&M, you buy a shirt, and then when you walk into Zara, you just have to like burn the shirt and then take another one.
Yeah. Proof of burn.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a topic we come back to again and again and again. As developments occur, and as technology progresses, as regulators start to pay attention. I think that it's going to keep pushing this way towards it, but I don't think it's going to be as fast as what everyone thinks. Like I think it'll be the same as like the way that AI has just kind of like taken over anyway. Stephen Hawking was warning about AI, and everyone thought it was going to be Terminator style or something, and like no, actually maybe it's the way that algorithms are like shaping our social connections and preferences and just bubbles. So I think it'll be a slow progression towards the downhill.
It's right there. That's the thing. That's what's so sort of trippy about like hearing someone like Mark Zuckerberg talk in depth about this concept with a journalist, and like they sort of tread on the dark parts like tiny bit, but it's mostly posy. But it's like that's right there. Like it's not in theory. So like it's already happening. But I agree with you, Max, that like metaverse technology, and then in general, everything in crypto and in tech, in new tech, it's like it's just going to happen. It is happening, and it will just continue to happen without us figuring it all out or how it's going to work. Like it's just going to be figured out as it goes along. And as we've seen with crypto stuff, it's like regulators cannot keep up. They just can't. Like they are currently retroactively enforcing securities laws for ICOs that happened in 2017. Just now, like securities laws. That's like not even actually like, I mean, that's fraud, but potentially, but like, it's not like a more serious social crime. like, yeah, we're just gonna see, I think, people bulldoze ahead, and we'll all figure it out as we go along. But what's scary to me about that is like we're all kind of, trying to figure out the 2D internet as it is. And there's so many people like kind of like more along the lines of Molly who are trying to like, they work in crypto, they work in tech and everything, but they're like trying to limit the amount of time they spend on the internet because of all of the sort of issues around being a user in the internet as it is now. It's like, given that group of people, I think, is just growing, even though like at the same time more and more people are using the internet, more and more people are trying to limit their time on the internet. This is just like opening a huge can of worms. Yeah. But it will open. It's already open. So
yeah, and I think the driving forces are what's something to keep an eye on. Like obviously for Facebook, the driving force is just shareholder profits and just continuing dominance and getting more people onboarded. But yeah, I think as much as I would like to believe, and sometimes do try to convince myself that like crypto is this like world-changing force, something totally new, like at the end of the day it is a financially motivated industry. So I think any I don't know what I'm trying to say by this, but like I feel like the 2017 TED Talk that we have discussed earlier always tries to paint it as this like social good, and in reality it's just people just like aping into Squid Game because they think they might make some money.
That is really cynical. It's about wealth creation, Maxwell.
But
at least it's about empowering you to own your own wealth. Whereas like with Facebook, like and tech, they're all about making the world a better place as well, but without that empowerment side, with no way to own your own.
I did not mean to conflate the two at all. But what I was going to say is that I think Molly and I think ourselves to the same degree, it's instead of just looking at okay, where's the fastest way to make money, we look at the space in a different lens. We look at the the opportunities that it offers, the technology that it brings, whereas I think a lot of the industry and a lot of the people in this space are just looking for profits, and a lot of people on Facebook are not there to like connect the world in a great place. They go there to just spout off their opinions and get into a fight. So
It's not.
It's based.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's a based and orange-pilled community.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you. That's the episode. Thank you for listening and or watching. If you're on YouTube, please give this video a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you are listening on a podcast platform, please rate this podcast, leave us a review, give us as many stars as possible, assuming you enjoyed this. And we will see you next time. Thank you.